So if you've only got a month to go before you're getting out, think about what story can I start building right now that puts me in a greater position to reach people. And that is not something that happens by accident. That is deliberate. That means you are architecting your strategy for success. And to the extent we think about that from where we are today and contrast where I want to be tomorrow, because I'm defining success. Zay, you define success. And if you say that's what you want to do, you've got to think about, well, what are all the problems that I got to overcome in order to win, in order to achieve what I want to achieve? Well, you may want to give clothes away. That's a very noble gesture. You may want to help people in impoverished communities. But guess what, fellas? You still got to eat. You still got to pay rent. You still got to have health insurance. You still got a lot of, these are all problems that each of us have to solve as formerly incarcerated people. I know, or I always say, I am unemployable. Nobody is going to hire me. I'm 56 years old. I was in jail for 26 years. I'll never get a job. So I got to figure out how to make my own job. And that's what I want you guys to be thinking. Maybe you're the exception. Maybe you get out and you get a job. If you go through the courses, and I know they're going to show these in the afternoon session, these other videos include me interviewing a lot of formerly incarcerated people that came back successfully. And they're all going to tell you a story. I think you'll hear the same message, is that they knew how to define success. They knew what they wanted, and they knew that they were wanting something that the system was not really positioned to give them, okay? But they had to have that never quit mentality. They had to be looking forward. One of them is a former partner of mine, and he is now not a partner of mine, but he's still a friend of mine. His name is Sean Hopwood. I don't know if you know him, but he was a former bank robber and a meth user. And today, he is a lawyer. He is a professor of law at Georgetown Law School, and he's an advisor to the White House on criminal justice reform. So he did 10 years in prison, former meth user, former bank robber, armed bank robber, 5-time armed bank robber, 10 years in federal prison. Today he's a lawyer. So people say, oh, well, that can't happen to most people. And that's true, because most people won't do what Zay's going to do, won't do what Ryan's going to do, won't do what Cole's going to do. And that's have the courage to say, okay, I'm going to define it, I'm going to participate, I'm going to do it. And so that's during the second phase. I know we're getting like 8 minutes away until our break. I want to spend a little bit more time talking about goals and what does it mean to have them be specific, right? What are the specific goals that I could achieve? How do they relate to what I'm defining success as? And there's a lot of ways to define it. In Earning Freedom, and I know that you guys have that book there, but in Earning Freedom, I wrote about, I was in every security level. I was in high security penitentiaries, medium security FCIs, low security prisons, and minimum security camps. And when I was there, I got to interact with, people from every social sector, every background, gang members, people serving life sentences, and business guys, right? All of them. And the reality is, if you define success in one way, your goals might align with that. If I want to be the strongest dude in the penitentiary, right? I'll show you a picture of a guy I interview, okay, and I'm going to do some work with. I always like to reach out to, I got to pull up Chrome. So now I've got Chrome up. I'm going to show you this picture of another guy who did prison time really differently from me, but he's become really successful out here. This is a guy that, was a gang member in prison and did 10 years. You can see my channel right now. You can see YouTube. Okay. Actually, here he is right here. Right. So wait for this commercial to get through. I don't think you guys can hear my sound, but I'll just show you the picture. So that's his channel. GP, general population, penitentiary life, the shoe. Okay. So you look at him and all he does, he's got his shirt off. He's got all his tattoos showing, right? And he's talking about his experience of being a gang member in prison. But look at the engagement he has. This is real data. He has 2.4 million views. He's got 200,500 likes on Facebook. He's got on his channel 40 million views and 300,000 subscribers. Okay? What does he talk about? He talks about what you guys are going through right now. Being in jail, going to prison, serving time. And now he says, hey, I'm done with crime, right? Made a lot of bad decisions. I couldn't find a job, so I prepared myself to build this career around showing other people the bad decisions that happen when you adjust to prison like I adjust. And I interview a lot of guys like that, right? That say, when I was in jail, I made every bad decision I could make. I didn't participate in programs. I didn't get an education. I spent my time in the shoe. I learned how to do my time this way. And as a result, when I got out of jail, there was no way I could get a job. I felt more comfortable in a penitentiary than I did in society. I didn't care if I went back to jail because that was the only place I felt comfortable. Now, this guy's a little bit of an exception. In fact, he's like 1 out of 10 million, I'd say, because he's built this channel where he's built this whole business around talking about prison and jail. Those guys are far more successful than I'll ever be on YouTube because people want to hear that sensationalism. My goal is to change the mindset because I know there are very, very few people that can make it like them. The vast majority of guys that I interview have a really hard time getting a job, have a really hard time getting employment, have a really hard time getting credit. And 3, 4, 5 years later, after they get out, they're still on this cycle of being violated by probation or going back into the system, or they get into new criminal behavior, not because they want to, but because that's the world in which we live. So the more we understand that, the more we can understand we've got to define success, we've got to set really clear goals, and we've got to be thinking about how are those goals going to relate to the problems I'm going to overcome, whether it's weight loss, whether it's being a better relationship, whether it's getting a better sentence, whether it's having a more successful journey in prison, regardless of what it is. And I know, it's almost 10 o'clock there. It's time for your guys' break. So I'll be respectful of that and we'll break here at 10, and I'll make myself open for anybody that wants to come up and talk either individually, but in the second half of our time together, just give you guys a heads up of what I'd like to do is speak a little bit more about how your goals relate to your future, and whether your future is before sentencing, whether you've already been sentenced and you're going into the system, what do those goals look like, and what it's going to look like on the other side of the journey. I want to talk a little bit about the assessments that we discussed yesterday of how you measure on a 100-point scale. And I want to talk about the 3-legged stool, which we discussed. And also, I just want to open myself up to respond to any questions that anybody have. The more engagement we have, as you can see, the better off it is. So I also want to end this by just thanking Cole, thanking Ryan, and thanking Zay for having the courage to come up. Thanks, brothers. You guys take your break or come on up. I'm all cool.